Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Face Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Fred Segura. In this segment, I would like to enlighten everyone on the origin of Two Face Entertainment. Now, first and foremost, let's get this out of the way. Why the name Two Face Entertainment? Sounds sketchy. You're kind of like, hey, what do you mean Two Face? Like, who'd want to go to that? Yeah, I understand. Being that I'm a Gemini, and we're labeled the twins, two-faced people, and that's pretty much how the name fell in. That's how I chose the colors of the label, which is the green, and we ran with that. I pretty much ran with that, and that was it. That was pretty much it. Was that simple? There's not much of a story to that. What there is I'm not here to also name drop on the successes I've had and the connections I've had with people and the stuff I ran through in the in the business and stuff like that. It's like anything. It has its good moments, has its bad moments, but hey, you take the good with the bad and you keep going. But that's how it started off. The very beginning, I was just pretty much I used to record cassettes. Those of you who are not old enough to remember cassettes, it's a tape. It I can't even explain what a cassette is. You'd have to Google it. How about that? But anyhow, they would sell singles to songs. I forget what song it was that I did a cover to or did a song to. But anyhow, I had a tape recorder that you record from one tape deck to the next tape deck, and you had to be quiet, because if not, your voice or the background would come out to stuff. So at the end of the day, I said, hey man, what, I just thought to myself, why don't I do it? And it wasn't that I don't consider myself, now I listen to people and they have that story like, hey, I did this, I did it like this, pretty much the same way. Me being from a small town in Central California, Soledad, California, in Monterey County to be exact. It was pretty rural out here. It's growing a lot more now, but it was pretty rural back then in 1993, where not much was being done. It's pretty much I just did it out of boredom and stuff. But I started recording some stuff, and I wasn't too happy with it at first. But one night I was at a friend's house who was a DJ. He was spinning some records, we were playing pool and stuff, and another friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, was there. He starts rapping along to, I think it was the Humpty Dance by Digital Underground, and he starts rapping to it. He's singing along, but my friend was playing the instrumental, and I kind of looked at him like, whoa. I was like, okay, cool. I said, hey, all right, cool, man. So we just kind of chilled, kicked it there for a while, and then afterwards I said, hey, man, you want to record some stuff? I told him. He was like, yeah, and back then it wasn't like, oh, you have a studio or we're going to go to the studio. It was just kind of like, hey, yeah, whatever, dude, let's go. Like, whatever. Nobody was doing it in Solid, California. Nobody was doing that at all. At all. So we went into my room and started recording. And it was just fun. A lot of it was some of the stuff we did. We did the song about the town and coming into the town, the signs, and describe the surroundings and stuff like that. And then we kind of went into the little, I guess you could say studio gangster, whatever you want to call it, because that wasn't at the time people, that's what they listened to, and people wanted to hear that kind of stuff. All right, cool, whatever. We did that. I was under the alias Fred Fish, and then it was Droopy Dog. Mind you, it was 1993. Everybody's something something dog or whatever. Nate Dog, Snoop Dogg, so that, and then other people were naming themselves whatever dog. But anyhow, so that's what we were rolling with. Uh, Before you, and a lot of the songs on that tape were also cover songs. They weren't our songs per se, but a lot of people were not up on game at the time. They weren't up on. It wasn't like it is today with social media and the internet. If you knew, you knew. If you were into that genre of music, which was like the Source magazine that helped us, kind of look into what was coming out, the new artists that were coming out, the labels that were releasing music. Like, say, for example, was it Ruthless, or or Death Row, whatever. We would, that's how we found out. That was our source. That was our 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 TV guide, if you will, that we ran to see what was coming and what day it was coming, what the mic ratings and so on and so forth. But anyhow, so a lot of people were not up and didn't know that a lot of those songs were cover songs. From Cocaine. What was it? From the album Funk Upon a Rhyme. Slow Burning was one of the songs we did. And so on and so forth. I could go on and on with it, but anyhow, we that was one of the songs that was on that I guess EP, mixtape, whatever you want to call it. It was on there. So, and we kept messing around. We kept recording a bunch of other stuff, and we had a bunch of instrumentals from singles of hit songs that were already out. So we did our own thing over on what today you would call a mixtape. So I believe it was I want to say 7 songs, maybe 8 songs, if that. It rounded up to about 30 minutes or something like that, to the of music that we had. So one day I just had it there, man, and I just started putting it together. Like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna record them all on one tape, because they were on a bunch of different tapes. And I did that, and went over to the store and bought a whole box of cassettes. Took them home and started recording them. Recorded all of them, just making my own copies, writing my own covers and stuff, writing the songs and this and this, just writing a bunch of stuff and putting all the stuff on there, which they're still floating around today. I've had people still send me stuff on social media like, hey, look, I still have this. I'm like, holy crap, okay, cool. It's just kind of, it's funny, which I kept one. I think I kept the master or whatever, but I do have that. And I ended up just going around town, man. Just going around town on a Friday, Saturday night and just handing them out to people, just giving them away. So I didn't think much of it. I was just kind of it's kind of cool, whatever. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about, oh my God, I'm going to blow up, or look at me, I rap. It wasn't none of that. It was just pretty much like, hey man, I just thought I just thought it was cool, whatever. So, I think if going back a little bit, I think there was wait, was it that one? I think it was that one. I was part of a car club. Well, I'm still part of a car club, but I think I dissed another car club on that first one. Anyhow, regardless of the point. So it got to that. It got around pretty much. It got around town and stuff like that. And being that the town at the time, the Soledad, California, was a lot smaller than it is now. Yeah, so things circulated a lot faster. People, everybody kind of knew everybody. Word got around. People shared the tapes and stuff. It's not like today where it's the internet. Nobody really cares if hey, you're trying to pass something on to them. They don't care. They're going to go to the internet and get what they like. People are not very prone to get, stuff off your hands no more. But anyhow, so I didn't really think much of it, man. It was kind of like whatever. So one night, I was at a house party and stuff, and again, we were shooting pool at this other spot, and just hanging around. Everybody was just chilling and just whatever, and I'm just like whatever about it. I'm not really tripping. But what ended up happening is one of the guys says, "Hey man, I heard that you made a song, about Soledad, and I was like, well, I was like, really? I was just like, what the hell? Okay, whatever, okay, cool, But he was like, yeah, man. He goes, yeah, we heard about that, man. We're trying to get a hold of that, And I said, well, okay, what? At the time, it wasn't like, hey, man, look, I'll get you a copy. It was kind of like, hey, whatever, it's out there. I just put out whatever I was going to put out. I don't even know if it was 40 to 50 tapes, whatever it was that I put out there. I just put it out there for the heck of it. At the time, who's counting, at the time? I'm sorry, whatever. Intermission real quick. Whatever you hear in the background, I'm in my car. I have my dog's in here right now, so he's kind of just being a little noisy. If you hear the background, that's my dog. Anyhow, on with the story. So, anyways, that night ended. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. Everything's cool. A lot of people later on started to kind of follow suit with that. Like, hey, man, hey, we heard about that. And they liked it, man. They really liked it. I was like, what the heck? Like, I was not expecting it to go the way it did. I really wasn't expecting people to talk about it the way they did. And unbeknownst to to myself, even within myself, and to anyone, I myself was, in fact, the first rapper out of Soledad, California. Independent rapper, for that matter. And to this day, I mean, I get people who are, who, and I hate the word hater and hate, whatever, but people who want to, say, oh, no, it wasn't you, it was so-and-so. No, dude, these other people came out with CDs. I had tapes. I got 2 tapes on them. Anyhow, or 3 tapes on them. But anyhow, on with the story. We're not going to focus on the negativity of that. I was, in fact, the first rapper in Soledad, California, under the alias Fred Fish. The names changed later on as the years went by to 2 other times, but we'll get into that later on. From that point, I believe it was like 97, I ended up, or late 96, I went out and bought a karaoke machine. Now, the karaoke machine, I went out and bought a bunch of singles, and I bought these, people thought I was a DJ. I was getting all these records, and I was like, hey, vinyl records, and recording the instrumentals onto a cassette, to produce a whole full-length album, if you will, which I did, which had, I believe it was like DJ Quick, the Twins, who else did it have? I forget off the top of my head. I forget who else was on there. The Dog Pound, Capone and Noriega, all these. And I'm not saying that these songs were awesome. No, I cringe now at some of them. But hey, it was what it was, man. Today, in today's world, or maybe in 2005, 2006, it would have been labeled an actual mixtape because it was on a cassette. So, with that, during that time, I ran into one of my buddies, my buddy Droopy Dog, that was on the first tape that we did. He ended up moving to Texas. I was pretty much on my own again, but I was doing the whole thing by myself. I was just going in, boom, 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 whatever. I believe before my friend Droopy Dog moved to Texas, he introduced me to a friend of mine, a guy who became a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine. He says, hey man, there's this guy, he kind of looks like Be Real of Cypress Hill, dude, and he raps, bro. He's a white dude, man. His name's Thomas. And I was like, oh, for real? Like, yeah, we ended up meeting him, and he started, he came over the house, and he just started doing some stuff, and I was showing him the stuff I was doing on the karaoke machine. He started saying some stuff, and then we started recording. I mean, we just pretty much naturally went into recording with that. We ended up doing a full length 60-minute tape, 30 minutes aside, cassette tape. Long story short, we ended up doing that. I had them pressed up. We had the cover. A friend of mine, George, I won't say his last name. Maybe he doesn't want me to say his name out like that, but he lived out in Seaside, California. He did the cover for us. Cheesy, pixely cover. At the time, we didn't know any better. It was a cassette. It was Fred Fish featuring 1216. 1216 was just pretty much the alias of Sacramento, which was what my friend Thomas was representing, and then the area code that I was representing over here in Soledad, California, which was at the time, I believe it was 408. anyhow, regardless, we'll get into I don't want to get into the mathematical skills and all that stuff. But anyhow, we ended up pressing up that tape, and I put it into a record store, which was kind of like our version of the VIP records in LA. We had a place called the Music Zone out here in Monterey County. In Salinas, California, we had a place called the Music Zone. Well, I ended up putting it there, for sale. It sold a couple of copies, and then I put it at another spot called the Crate. It was called the Crate. I put it up for sale there. And these were mom and pop stores, man. They weren't like the major stores, obviously, but they were supportive and really helpful, and then we had it there for sale. And then after a while, at first I was like, yeah, it's cool, I didn't really think much of it. Again, I wasn't thinking much of it. Some people later on were like, hey, man, I heard that was trash, man. Like they were, kind of knocking it. And I was like, what? That kind of stung a little bit. But, at the time you're still learning the game, you're still learning like, wait a minute, what, like, why? What, like, what the hell? Like, why do you got to hate like that? I mean, but mind you, this tape, don't get me wrong. This tape, I went out. I mean, during the recording process, I had a VCR connected to this thing. It wasn't just a karaoke machine. The songs were recorded on tracks in a sense. Each take was a different cassette. So we had features like when he and I did stuff, it was like I did my verse and then we'd let the song play all the way through and then go back and take that copy and put that on the playing side and then re-record it again and have him lay his verse so I wouldn't have to do my stuff over again. We wouldn't pass the mic. It was actually done real clean. Skits were in there from movies and background noises, and we put all that in separately. I mean, it was just a full-on album, if you will, or a mixtape, what you would call now. So anyhow, some people started knocking it and stuff, and then before you know it, I seen other people start coming out, and then the part that sucks, man, it wasn't really like, oh my God, like, hey man, check it out, we rap too, we should all do this stuff. No, it was pretty much like, hey, check this out, my song's better than yours. Kind of that vibe of it. It felt kind of like, okay, I get it. Like whatever. A lot of people started knocking it, but then some people started really liking it. It came. Again, we're learning the game at that time. After that, we kept recording. He ends up introducing me to my friend Thomas. Ends up introducing me to another rapper who lived in the next town over from Soledad, which is Gonzales, California, and he was, I forget what his alias was, but he ended up recording with us. I forget what his alias was at that time. No, you know what? He didn't have an alias. He went under JoJo. That was his name. That's what was his name, and that's what he rapped with. His name was JoJo. Anyhow, and this guy could spit, man. He was a tall, skinny guy. He kind of looked like Snoop Dogg, I mean, a little bit like the Mexican version of Snoop Dogg, if you will. But we ended up doing that stuff, and so we'd record a couple of stuff. With that came pretty much like almost a family member of mine, which is people now know him as Key Loom. Back then he was Key Loke, and he was like 15, 16 years old at the time. We started recording stuff, and we did like a 6-song EP, which honestly we weren't even trying, man. We just did. I think we did the Bratz Functified. We did I forgot what else. Anyhow, this like 6-song EP turned out to be like every song was actually pretty good, if you ask me. I mean, at the time, I haven't heard it in a long time, and I probably would cringe now, but it was actually better than the actual full-on mixtape we had previously did. So I ended up pressing that one myself, and I put it out, man, and people liked it. People people were prone to it. They kind of jumped into that and they were like, hey man, that's pretty good. Uh, from there, we went on to, everybody kind of went their own way after a while. You know what I mean? I proceeded to move ahead with it. I ended up recording another album, but this time I thought like, okay, you know what? Oh, the first tape that we did was called Straight from the Underground, which was the first tape ever to be released out of Soledad, California. The first rapper in Soledad, yada yada yada. The second one we did that we pressed up, that was a full on mixtape, was again Fred Fish featuring 1216. And I took that featuring 1216 from the MC8 featuring Compton's Most Wanted. That's how we came up with that idea. But anyhow, but it was Fred Fish featuring 1216 Catch of the Day. And then the last one, the 6-song EP was Fred Fish Presents, I think it was, The Last Bootlegs. And the last bootlegs was because I had made a promise to myself to say, okay, you know what, dude, I'm no longer going to do this. No longer going to take, jack beats from the artists and record on cassette and stuff. We're going to hit the studio. We're taking it serious now. So that was the reason for the title of that last mixtape, if you will. It was called The Last Bootlegs. So anyhow, I ended up later on, this was, I believe, in, I want to say 99, 98, 99, I believe, to started recording an album. And I started doing a whole bunch of songs and so on and so forth. And I always wanted to do this, this bright up-tempo, album. I was more into the LA vibe of like Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound, the Twins, Warren G, a little bit of Wu-Tang and that kind of stuff. I wasn't really more. I mean, I knew and heard like Brother Lynch and E40, which I loved, and the Click and so on and so forth, in the Bay Area and stuff, the Loonies and stuff, which was great. But I was more prone on the LA G-Funk kind of vibe. So that's what I was trying to go for. I ended up doing a track that was pretty dark, titled Casualties of Life. And to rewind a little bit, after releasing Catch of the Day in 1997, June of 1997, I lost my dad in October 4th of 1997. So I went into a bad depression, if you will. But anyhow, fast forward, we don't need to get into all that. When I did the track Casualties of Life, I was inspired by Exhibit of the Alcoholics, from the album At the Speed of Life. He had a song on there called Carry the Weight. And I heard that and I was like, damn, like this guy, I heard the whole album, loved the whole, I played that whole album back and forth, man. And I thought like, Jesus, man, he's not being a gangster. He's just being himself, and that helped me propel myself into recording Casualties of Life, which was a song at first. And everybody else was like, hey, dude, that's the jam right there, dude. That's the jam you need to run with. Like all the other ones, it's like, whatever, dude, you need to run with this one. So I ended up taking that track, and I had did a song for my dad. God rest his soul. I did a song for him using the Isley Brothers For the Love of You sample, which has been used by a lot of times. But anyhow, I mean, a lot of people really like that one. I mean, the beat and the lyrics and everything that I had did to that. But so I saved those two songs that I had recorded already, and I kind of went into this whole exhibit mode of just telling my story of who I was and what had happened and so on and so forth. And before you know it, I was like neck deep into this album I was recording, I was started meeting a lot of people along the way, and I, I was like, wow, dude, like, what the hell? Like, there's people rapping now, and stuff like that. And I was getting their features on them because I was like, hey, man, like, you want to get on my stuff? Like, let's do it. My thing was like, hey, my perspective was, and look, I'll put it to you like this. A lot of people figured, hey, man, an album, it should be you. It shouldn't be, nobody else. If you had limited features at the time, I felt more like, and not comparing myself, but I felt more like a Dr. Dre. I figured, hey, if I'm gonna do something good, I'm gonna display and I'm gonna, uh, uh, expose my area and the local talent out here. That was my perspective of why I had so many features on this album. So, with that being said, I said, well, you know what? I can't finish this album without getting back the people that were on my album, on my tapes. So back came my friend Thomas, and he had a crew with him called AOD, which is Ancient One's dialect. But he had a whole, like, kind of like a Tupac Outlaws kind of thing. It was him, and he had his crew going. So he had moved away, but he actually came down hours, drove hours to get on my stuff. Jojo came back with the new alias as Young Blaze, and he did his, he featured on my album. Uh, a Droopy Dog, he was in Texas, he couldn't get on that no more. But I mean, it is what it is. Key Loom got on the album too as well. So I had everybody that originally was writing with me from day one. So I got him on this album, and we just kind of went with it, man. And I had a crew going with me, myself, of artists. But you know what, man? Here's where the dark story comes in. It became hey, let's go to the studio. Okay, cool. Oh, you know what? Let's drink and let's smoke. And let's get this, and I can't rap sober, and I can't write to this beat. I need this and I need that. And I was like, okay, cool. At the end of the day, man, I was sitting there writing my own shit and just kind of going into it, kind of writing, my own tracks and going into it, man. Just really doing my own stuff. And later on, people were getting mad and be like, hey, man, you're hogging up all the beats. I'm like, look, dude, nobody else is writing. Nobody else is writing anything. I'm going in there, hey, I'm paying for the studio time. I might as well get the stuff done. So it was taking them too long to do a verse. Sometimes, at some point, there was a certain individual, he didn't understand that the bar had raised high to where we weren't trying to go the karaoke sound. If you weren't cutting it, you weren't going to make the album. And it wasn't personal. It was just more like, hey, come on, dude, let's get it. Let's step it up, and I understand his frustration, but it wasn't personal. It was more business. We won't get into that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was like, I wanted to go in a different direction, and he was still kind of a little bit more behind in mentally in time to opposed to where we were at. What ended up happening is the crew that I had, we had a female, and she ended up stealing lyrics from like 3-6 Mafia that we later found out, wait a minute, what? So we had to take her off tracks. I was on, she ended up doing stuff that I had written on other people's stuff, and I was like, no, you got to remove that, dude, because I wrote that. That's my stuff. And it just got messy. And then they try to use the whole street thing, like, hey, man, you got to talk to me, and and in other words, put up, you're gonna have to deal with it, and that's the end of it. It's like, no, dude, I'm not accepting that. That's not the way it works. I did all publishings for everybody. At the time, I would call New York. I had this magazine that had I forgot the name of it, but it had every record label in there, and I'd call New York and tell them, listen, I need applications for writers and publishers, ASCAP, and they were like, American Society of Composers, and it escapes my mind right now what it is. But anyhow, it's for industry people how you get paid your royalties. And they would send me these applications. I did it for my nephews as well. They were on my stuff. They were small. They were still kids. They would send, they would send me these applications. I'd fill them out as best as I could, send them back to New York, and they send me these cards, right, with said ASCAP on it. And I was like, man, I remember looking at the credits on the CDs, and I would always see ASCAP or BMI, and I was like, what the heck, like, and I really felt famous, like, shoot, man, like, hey, I'm a member. I didn't know what to do with this thing. I really did not know what to do with these things. It was a publishing company and my writing company, whatever. It was like, okay, cool. A lot of the guys, I did it for a lot of people, and they were free. And there were big envelopes they would send them in. Anyhow, nobody ever took advantage of that stuff. I kept mine and kept going with it. Again, going back to the crew that I had, they ended up saying, well, you know what? We don't want to be a part of this no more, and we're going to do our own thing. And they ended up leaving. So at the end of the day, I was by myself, again, back to square one, and I felt like, at the time, I felt like, man, well, I need a crew, I need to have this crew. But a lot of people that were close, even within that camp that I was running with, a few of them stayed solid and were like, hey, man, like, we're still cool, Fred. Like, we're not going to, it is what it is. A lot of people always told me, Fred, you're the only one doing stuff, bro. Why are you worried about everybody else? And I kind of like, you know what, you're right. But I was already, like I said, neck deep into this stuff. I kept doing stuff. Before you knew it, I had some big names on this Casualties of Life album before I actually finished it. I started getting some pretty big names of its time. I won't get all into all the name dropping and stuff, but it was actually pretty impressive, to be honest with you, for its time. And I was running around all over the place, meeting people from the Bay Area, shooting photos with them and stuff like that. But it wasn't just the photos. I was actually connecting with these people, and they were looking at me like, hey, yeah, dude, they really were taking me serious because they saw that I had the right mind frame of what to do. Although I had no knowledge of what I was doing, in a sense. I was just kind of rolling with it like, hey, look, I have my publishings and I have this label, and I had this, we could record at the studio, but it's like, okay, other than that, I don't know much about that after all, after everything. But anyways, these guys recorded, some of them recorded with me. We went on to release the album, and mind you, it took a long time. I released it in October 8th of 2002. With that, when the album came out, it came out October 8th, which was of 2002, a week after my son was born, exactly to the day. And it was successful, man. I mean, it really took off. I had reviews from the Bay Area. I had reviews from Southern California, and both of them were positive reviews. I mean, out of 5, I think it was 4.5 stars on both. People were impressed with that. People were saying, hey, look, this is the label that's doing it, and it really, I never got a big head about it. I was never like, yeah, hey, man, I'm the one that's gonna, it was never to that extent. It was just kind of like, oh, whatever, just like, hey, I'm just doing, look, it's like, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about this or that. I had a passion. I have a passion for what I was doing. I think that's what took away from saying, oh, I'm this and that. No, I had a passion for it. And yet when people recognized how good this stuff was, for those of, who saw it for what it was, I'm not saying this for everybody, because some people didn't like it. Some people didn't like it just on the fact that they didn't like it. That wasn't for them. Some people didn't like it because they simply didn't like me. That's just how it goes, But then some people, loved it. I've had people that tell me, man, this album changed my life. This album, it came at a time when my relative passed away, and it did a lot for me. It kind of got me through this, knowing that I wasn't by myself, because I was talking about some real life events that I went through in my life, which is, to this day, I can't go back and listen to it because it brings back a dark period of my life. and I don't really like listening to it. But anyhow, we went on to do more stuff. Uh, uh, we had the little logo and stuff, the little Roman numeral with the face on each side, which represented two faces. It was more like the death row kind of, everybody, oh, the chain, everybody wants a little chain with the thing. But as we went on later on in time, the logo changed. Kept the name, but the logo changed. Two Face Entertainment, But with that being said, I ended up releasing, I believe there was singles later on, which was the single Closer, which featured a good friend of mine from Salinas, who I met through the music stuff that was together with a friend of mine from Salinas. I released a single, entitled Closer, and I put that on Facebook. But at this time, the Casualties of Life album, I went under the name Gemini. But then it was like, okay, you know what? That's a little too simple. I mean, I figured it was a little too simple. Somebody else came out with it. Out of Texas, good guy. I've connected and I've talked to this guy before. Good guy. He had a hit on the radio, and hey, you know what? So that didn't downplay me per se. I was more like, hey, look, I'm still on the vibe. I know what I'm capable of, and hey, he got a song on the radio. Hey, he won. I'm off with a different name, but I'm still going. So when I set back a little bit, I kind of set back to reset. I went out, and I didn't say nothing to anybody. I just went on Facebook. I mean, on MySpace at the time, and made a MySpace page called The Grindhouse. And then I did a bunch of stuff. I forgot what it was, like all these other sites and stuff. I started basically taking over everything, so nobody would take it. From that point, I took that single that I had did with this one female singer, and I put it on MySpace. But I started promoting it for a while, and then my friend from Ghetto Balling Entertainment, he helped me. He did the cover and stuff for me, and he and we've been working together since 2005, which is a good friend of mine. Not only just in the music, but it's personal as well. You know what I mean? If he needs anything, hey, he knows he can call me. And I'll call with him and check on him from time to time, and so on and so forth. I don't want to get into his personal stuff. It is what it is. We have a great relationship as far as, being friends, and not only just in friends, he trusts me as well, not only personally, but musically as well, So anyhow, so on and so forth, we go on. So I released a single, Closer, put it on MySpace, only now it's under the Grindhouse. And the photos I took of myself was basically I'm hiding my face the whole time. You can't see who I am. You just see the shirts, and you see the hats, and you see, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but you can never see my face. So what my thing was I'm going to sell this record. I'm going to push this record to where you're going to like the record. I don't want to sell, you know what I mean? I don't want to give any perspective of anything other than the record itself. So from that point, people started, hey, who are you? Hey, that's a nice song. Oh, and then a lot of females were taking the song and sharing it on their pages at the time, and it just went off, man. It was off the chain. I did some shirts promoting that just a single. I didn't even have an album. It was just a single. It's just one song. And people started shooting photos with it, sending them back. I started posting the pictures up, on my MySpace, and people were like, "Oh my God, I love this song," and so on and so on. And we kept going. We ran with that. And I think it was like a year or two that people were like, "Man, who are you?" You know what I mean? Who are you? And the song was just going. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was getting about 5,000 hits a day. And we were just going, for brokes on that thing, and what happened was, I did a show one time in Porterville. We went out to do a show in Porterville, a couple of us went out there, and I showed up. And what was funny was I walked up to some of the guys from over there that I still know to this day, some good, some good people. And I walked up, and they're like, "Hey, oh, it's the grindhouse. Oh, he does have a face." And I was like, "What the hell?" Like, but it was just kind of funny because nobody had ever seen me. And to me, again, it was my marketing way of saying, "Hey, look, I'm gonna sell the record. I'm not gonna sell an image. I'm not trying to sell an image. I'm trying to sell you the music." And that's exactly what it did, and it worked, man. It worked. From there, I ended up releasing another song entitled "Baby Boy," which was about my son, and it had my son on there, not rapping, but you hear his voice, and he was he was like 2 or 3 years old at the time already. It's basically about him. Then later on, we released a song called "Ooh Wee," which featured myself, JoJo, formerly known as JoJo, was now Young Blaze, another guy, the producer. I don't want to get into names here, guys, because they might have a problem with that. So, and two other artists, and this song it just kind of took off too a little bit. It was starting to get some, it was starting to get the plays going. And I remember people writing me on MySpace was like, "Hey man, like, you're not a fluke. Like, these hits are like, you have songs, dude. Like, these songs are tight. Like, hey, when's the album coming? When's the album coming?" And I had worked on stuff, and previously I was trying to get on an album. I was trying to finish an album called Walking Tall, but I never finished it due to the fact that Casualties of Life did not come out how I intended it to come out. I wanted something bright. I wanted something up tempo, G-funk, and it turned out to be very dark. When I did Walking Tall, it was supposed to be a turnaround, a complete 360, where it was supposed to be up tempo, and I found it to be dark again, and I pretty much put a stop to it. So that's when the song Closer and all these other songs that were a little bit brighter, more radio friendly. And not only that, I didn't switch it because as an artist, I was trying to expand myself into not doing the hardcore stuff, not swearing on the records. I wanted to be able to say, "Hey, you know what? There's a show I want you to perform at, but it's a family event. I don't want any cussing." Whatever the promoter would say, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm good to go, bro. Let's go. I got these songs. I could perform these." Or the local radio station can say, "Hey, look, we want to play your record, but which one can we play?" You don't have to go, "Oh, well, you could play track 3, 6, and 4." No, I want to be able to say, "Hey, check it out, man. Play whatever you want. Listen to it. Play whatever song you like." That was my mentality. That's to this day. And then the whole thing of the whole recording process was no drinking, no smoking, dude. If you don't got it, you just don't got it, dude. I went in there clean and said, "Hey, you know what? Check it out. We're here to make a song." And that's how it was, man. That's how it ended up being. Later on, I ended up putting out Young Blaze's album, which did fairly well. I ended up putting out, I was going to put out my friend Thomas of AOD, put out their product, but their album at the time when we tried to do that, this was before Casualties of Life, it just kind of, I didn't have the knowledge of how to do it, so we kind of like, we tried to put it out, but we couldn't at the time, and it just didn't go. It didn't go because at the time, mind you, there was no internet, there was none of that stuff. It was just starting off. So there was no knowledge of how to do that. As time went on, I ended up doing my nephew ended up doing a mixtape, CD, a mixtape, which was very successful. I mean, this kid was pushing, the first day of release, he pushed 200 copies, hard copies. And this is in 2014. So it went, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And it just got bigger. And I was like, whoa, like, this thing's huge. You know what I mean? It kind of took off more than what I expected it to take off. Because I was kind of telling him, dude, fall back a little bit. Don't worry about it. It's not going to go that far. People say they're going to buy it. And when it comes out, nobody cares. No, that was not the case in his situation, it really took off. Um, from there, we kind of fell back a little bit. I ended up filming some stuff with the camera and stuff. I started filming stuff. I started doing a documentary because I started feeling like, man, is it I started feeling like, man, everything's starting to sound the same. What are we doing? As local artists, I started feeling as local artists, what are we doing, man? Everything's starting to sound the same. Everything's kind of the same old stuff. New album, same vibe. Like, no, nobody's growing as artists. Am I the only one that feels this stuff is whack? So I kind of went, I started kind of asking myself these questions, and I picked up a camcorder, went out there, started asking these people this question on camera. I started filming a documentary, not even knowing where the hell I was going with it, to be honest with you. I just started filming people. I just knew I wanted to make a documentary. I went out and started filming people. During that time, my mom had a massive stroke. I stopped filming for like a year, and it just kind of like, it kind of took me. Yeah, it took. We won't get into all that. I kept, later on, I kind of regrouped myself, kept filming, ended up releasing or screening the documentary. It took me like a year or 2 years, and then 14 months of editing to do this documentary film based on the Monterey County local artists, and I went all over the place with it. So I want to give a shout out to Tony A. the Wizard for. I understand where he's coming from when he says it takes time to make a documentary. It's not a music video, guys. It's a documentary. It takes a long time to do, and that's the biggest misconception of a lot of people that want to do stuff like, oh, well, you filmed it, let's put it out tomorrow. It's like, no, dude, this is gonna take longer, dude. This is gonna take a lot longer. So anyhow, it took that amount of time for me to do it. It took like 2 years, I think it was, and then it took 14 months of editing to finally get it right to 1 hour. And mind you, you got hours and hours, like hundreds of hours of not just interviews, but just narrative filming as well. Stuff like that. Like, it's just a lot of stuff to do. But anyhow, my friend from Ghetto Ballin', he helped me put that together as well. He's helped me along the way through every single album that we've done. He's either done the covers, he's done the mixing and mastering for me. Like, we work in conjunction together. So anyhow, we screened it in, I believe, April 17th of 2011. People went, they loved it. I put it on YouTube for a while, but then I took it down because it's like, nah, you know what? I can't be giving this away for free like that. It's just like, nobody, a lot of people were seeing just a little bit and then kind of, whatever. I just kind of let it alone. I just felt like, I gotta take it down. From that point, we've proceeded on to other stuff that I'm not going to get into. There are horror stories that we could get into later on. Perhaps, right now I won't get into all that. I mean, this is just pretty much the surface of how it all went about. I could get into the details of the story of the music business, which will probably be a whole different podcast, in general. But that's what ended up happening, man. When we did the stuff, and I'm still working with Ghetto Ballin' Entertainment. It's Two Face Entertainment and Ghetto Ballin' Entertainment. There's still another album in the works that's has yet to be finished, which is an all-star studded, biggest album we have to date. This is gonna, really, it's, what, man, it's not about, oh, I'm gonna make millions, or look at me, I'm gonna be famous, or none of that. None of that. I mean, there are some very legendary, huge names on this next project. But to me, in my perspective, and what I bring to my small circle of, my small team, my circle, is to say, listen, dude, like, we're not doing this to rub it in anybody's face, to say, hey, we've always been the best, we've always been the first to do this, to do that. No. It's just to say, hey, listen, man, I'm doing what I love, And I've accomplished what I set out to do. Minus it's not about making the money, dude. It's within oneself. I made it. I got to where I wanted to get to. I got the people that I wanted to get on this project. We made it. We made it, dude. That's end of story. We're not doing it with any malice behind us. Like, oh look, you're gonna see when I pull this out, you're gonna get all woo woo woo. No, dude, no. I'm proud to be able to say, you know what? I'm putting this out, man, because this is what I love. This is where it all stems from. This is who I grew up listening to. It's not about, you need features because you can't do it on your. No, these are the people that we grew up listening to, and I admire them and thank them for actually acknowledging and coming back and getting on this project as well. And not only that, I mean, just acknowledgement in general to know the history, of us, for that matter. And really, man, that's it in a nutshell, man. I mean, there's more stuff. Now comes this podcast, which is, I think it's great, man. I mean, I'm still pushing this stuff. We're still making it happen. It's not the end. We're still doing the music stuff. We're turning it on to a whole new thing. It's still Two-Face Entertainment. It's still Ghetto Ballin', and we're going for it, man. This is what it is. There's no falling back. Oh no, we can't do this because of this. And no, we're moving forward with stuff. We're making it happen. And again, we can go back, and I'll go back if some of you guys wish to hear a dark side of the business, even though it's independent. Trust me, it's very sketchy. There's a lot of ungrateful people in this business, ungrateful people in general, that you could take under your wing and help them out, and they turn their back on you. And that not only is, I could say that's not only to say it's, oh, that's how the business is. It really describes the character of a person. That when you really look back at it, at the end of the day, it's a business aside from everything else. You look at that person, that person as a person, like, wow, you're a real piece of work, bro. Like, seriously, it's pretty sad and pathetic, to be honest with you. And I'm being straightforward about it. That's pretty pathetic. But anyhow, that's for another podcast. We'll get into that, as we go on. If you guys choose to want to hear those stories as well as the recording process, sometimes it's not what you think. It's bad, it's a bad thing. Bad things have happened. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in this podcast, my dad passed away in October 4th of 97. My mother, unfortunately, passed away July 25th of 2011, a little bit after I dropped that documentary film, and we still keep going, man. My friend Thomas, who I met through the music, ended up passing away as well, August 19th, I believe. And the year skips my mind because it's just like, it's a lot to go through, man. It's a lot to go through. These people passed away, in my life and stuff, and the music stuff. And I've lost people before, but excuse me. I had to take a drink of water. Excuse me again. But I've lost people, man, and it's a hard thing to go through, dude. But you know what? I was glad because I had footage. I've had some footage that I could still, with us hanging around, you know. Oh, the very first. I'm sorry. Let me go back again. And I hate to do. See, I hate to do this because I'm just going off my head of what I'm telling you on this podcast. One of the first album release under Two Face Entertainment, official release, was Doom, the original Welcome Into the Night, which is an artist from Salinas. He was also signed to a major at one point. The second release was Young Gun, 16 Shots. And then it was Casualties of Life, Gemini, Casualties of Life. Those are the three that broke the ice. And they were underground successes. I mean, we went on and did a bunch of stuff. And to this day, I still stay in contact with them through social media. And we're still good, man. We're still good. And I'm bringing them back sometimes for for features on this next album. But those things are it's what happens in this business. It's unfortunate sometimes, man. You know. But with that being said, guys, I will end this podcast now, and we may do a part two and bring you the darker side of stuff, but that only depends. I don't want to get into a whole bitter thing and sound dark and negative about it. It's just unfortunate what happens, you know. But again, that is the origin of Two Face Entertainment. With that, I wish you all well. Thank you for listening. This is again Fred Segura, also known as The Grindhouse, also known as Fred the Movie Junkie. With that being said, guys, see you on the next one. Bye.